Hey there, hobby homesteaders. Welcome back to Peek's Peak. Today, we're hoping to have Meg running. Now, if you don't remember why our 1974 Volkswagen Beetle is named Meg, you'll have to go back in the archives about a year and a half to when we brought her home to find out. But today, we have a freshly rebuilt stock 1600cc Volkswagen engine, bolted up, wired up, waiting for some fuel delivery components. I got our new carburetor in the mail today, and that's what we've been waiting on to fire this up and see how we're doing. So I got to put a fuel filter in. I actually did away with the old electric fuel pump and put a mechanical fuel pump back on this. So I got to run the fuel line to hook that up to the carburetor, put a vacuum line on to our distributor, and that should be about enough for us to fire her up. Now, I got a few little issues and concerns that we've got to iron out on this, and we definitely have a little bit of body work in the way of floor pans, at least, to do on this. I've got the carpet and everything ripped out because we're going to replace the floor pans and just kind of do a enough restoration to make her safe to put on the road and play around with. And so that's the big goals for this, but today the goal is to fire it up. So let's see how we can do. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is crank this thing over and get the fuel filter filled up with fuel, and we'll see if we can't get carburetor float bowl filled up, and then we'll go from there. All right, let's go see if we got any fuel back here yet. Not yet. Let's try the timing just a little bit. All right, guys, well, it is the next day because I got fed up and quit after working on it for several hours last night. And here's the deal. I made a major mistake when I was building this motor, and I figured it out before I had the motor put back in, but I decided that I would be able to work around it. What I did was I put the distributor gear inside the case 180 degrees out. So the motor can still be ran that way. You just put your distributor in 180 degrees out. But what that did was mess with my mind, and I didn't have things put back together right in terms of my distributor and wiring and plug wires and all of that mess. Now, I don't like it. I should have torn the engine back down and fixed that cam gear, but I had the thing assembled when I figured it out. I didn't know that the distributor gear has an offset. It's got like 2 half moons, and one of those half moons is smaller than the other. You turn that smallest half moon towards the rear of the car or the pulley end of the motor when you're assembling. And that's the way that it's put. But what I did was looked at a diagram and looked at the way that it was supposed to be lined up, and I put it in there exactly 180 degrees out. Now, what I did was I came home with kind of fresh eyes, and I put the thing at #1 cylinder, top dead center. I checked my valves. I stabbed my distributor exactly 180 degrees out from what you would normally put one. I marked and labeled everything. I put all the wires back in, and I also, where my fuel pump wasn't pumping fuel last night, I put all brand new fuel lines on it. I have not tested it yet. I haven't even turned the key. So we are at that point. I set my static timing, and we're at the point where we're ready to fire it up. You are about to see me turn the key for the first time, thinking that it's going to start. So let's see how that works out for us. I'll probably turn the key and it'll have a dead battery. Actually, since I haven't primed the fuel pump yet, I better hit her with some starting fluid. Moment of truth. Let's see how she does. they ain't no fixing that from out here. Well guys, we've got a problem. And it's looking more and more like somehow maybe I've made a mistake in indexing the cam. I don't think so, because the crankshaft has 2 dots, the camshaft has 1 dot. You put the 1 dot between the 2 dots. I know that, so I don't know how I could have messed that up, but I've tried everything I know to try in wiring, plug wires, and distributor, and we've got fuel. We've got a brand new carburetor actually, and we can get this thing to fire holding it wide open, and it will sound like it's trying to run, but it just will not take off. It tells me, oh, we also checked our compression, and we've got 130 plus pounds of compression on every cylinder, so there's something else going on here. And because I've never rebuilt a bug engine before, I kind of don't have any confidence that I got everything right. So I'm thinking at this point, I mean, it's pretty simple to pull a bug motor and tear it down. I'm thinking that I'm just gonna do that. And I'm gonna take pictures as I put it back together so I have those to reference. Maybe there's something else going on, but I'm out of ideas. So at this point, I've decided I'm just gonna pull this motor out and tear it back down and see if I can find an issue. I don't know what else to do. It's disappointing, but at the same time, this is kind of how you learn to wrench. You know, especially, there used to be all kinds of people around that knew all about these bug engines, and they could tell you all the tricks and the ins and outs, but you know, they're just not that big of a thing anymore, or at least I don't know that many people into it, so I don't have a whole lot of resources in terms of people to talk to about what I'm running into here. But you know, as I was working on this last night and troubleshooting, I was watching Taylor Ray video where he was talking about, he's building an AE86, and he was talking about diagnosing problems with engines and cars and that sort of thing. And he was saying, you know, it's the whole process and experience of, you start out, you get a car, you don't know anything about them, something goes wrong, and you have to figure it out. So you dig in and you work until you find the solution, you get it running again. Then the next time, something different happens and you've got to figure that out. But after a while, you work on these things and you run into issues and you start to remember, oh, well, last time I had an engine do this, it was this problem. And you build your knowledge base to where you can learn what's causing these problems. And that kind of clicked with me as I was working on this. You know, I've not worked on bug engines very much, and I've definitely never tore one down, rebuilt it and all that. So this is all kind of part of the hobby and the experience, is running into problems and then having to figure those out. And in just troubleshooting, the fact that I put that distributor gear in 180 out, I learned so much by having to research and figure that out that, you know, the next time I won't make that mistake. But the fact that I did that tells me that there's a good possibility maybe I messed something else up. Makes me feel kind of like a dunce. But we're gonna pull this motor back out and tear it down and see what we got. It's all for fun anyway, so might as well get to it. Guys, well, I got out here in the shop this morning and I cleaned everything up so that I could kind of start fresh on my workbenches and everything. And then I got started unhooking this motor from the Volkswagen. I got everything unhooked, got the motor on the ground in less than 30 minutes. That's one thing that's pretty cool about these old VWs, is they're pretty simple, even though they're a little more complex than I can figure out apparently. it's pretty quick and easy to pull a motor out of one. I mean, you know, somebody who's good could do it a whole lot quicker than the 30 minutes that it took me. But we got it out. I'm gonna get it put on a stand, and then we'll start tearing this thing down, and we'll figure out what's going on in there. All right, guys, so literally in a couple of hours, I got the motor pulled out of this bug. I put it on a stand, and I got the thing split apart, and I've actually got everything laid out here in order on the workbench. And I actually am going to have to go away for a week for work. So I made me a parts list, and I'm going to place the order for those so that when I get back home, I will have time to, or I'll have everything I need to reassemble this. So apparently our first round was just a practice run. And there are a couple of things that I think I can do better this time, using a better material to seal the case halves, and I'm going to, you know, clean everything up really good. But I definitely found the issue, and that was I did not have the camshaft indexed properly. And it blows my mind that I managed to pull that off, because I looked at it over and over and I knew how it was supposed to be. But I think what happened is I started to put the case together, and I had the crankshaft bearings not quite on the dowels, and I had to lift it back up to move those bearings around. And when I did that, I may have taken the camshaft out, gotten sidetracked by fixing those bearings, and just not paid attention when I put it back in. I don't know, but I made the mistake. So I'm learning from it. I got to pull the motor back out and tear it all the way back down, and here we go again for round two. This is all the hobby of turning wrenches, and it's kind of fun because, you know, honestly, I knew when I got the timing right on this bug and it was making the noises that it was making, that there was something off in the compression timing. I had good compression and everything, but something wasn't right because it just wouldn't fire up. And it told me it had to be the camshaft. I didn't want to believe it, but it is what it is. So I've got all these parts laid out here. I'm gonna get some rags and stuff and cover it all up so that we don't get dirt flying into it while I'm gone. And we'll get back on this next time. So I'm sharing with you one of my biggest mistakes in the garage so far. A little bit embarrassing, a little bit, yeah, but you live and learn, right? All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I appreciate y'all watching, supporting our channel. If you haven't subscribed, be sure and subscribe. It helps our channel out, and I appreciate y'all watching. You all have a good day.